Good morning. I would like to call the Niagara Police Service Public Board meeting to order for December 19th, 2024. My name is Jen Lawson and I am the chair of the Niagara Police Service Board. We begin the meeting this morning by acknowledging that the Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hadawindaronk, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Service Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We'll start with roll call. Member Kiokio.
Present.
Member Gibson.
Present.
Member Yip.
Present.
Vice Chair Kapasavanu.
Present.
Member McKendrick.
Here.
Member Steele.
Here.
Do any members have any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest? Seeing none, if I can have members Kiokio and members Gibson move that the minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, November 28th, 2024 be adopted as circulated. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? No one's opposed, so that's carried. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome Dave Tilley to the meeting today. Dave is with the Inspectorate of Policing at the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and he serves as a police servicing advisor to Zone 4 police boards in Ontario. He regularly attends our meetings as part of the routine visits by policing services advisors to police boards across the province. The board is pleased to see his continued attendance at our monthly meetings. On December 6th, I joined Niagara Regional Police Service for a ride-along to observe their festive ride campaign in Port Colborne. This is an annual initiative to reduce impaired driving through education and enforcement. During the ride spot checks that were held throughout the night in Port Colborne and Welland, there were approximately 400 vehicles stopped. A total of 4 drivers had their licenses suspended, and there were several provincial offense notices issued to drivers for various traffic-related offenses. I would like to thank Inspector Chris Lemich for facilitating the experience and the NRPS Traffic Enforcement Unit for their dedication to road safety. Special thanks to Constables Frank Chadwick and Brian James and Sergeant Josh Klopp for explaining the equipment enforcement processes in the field. I encourage all board members to participate in similar initiatives like ride-alongs to gain better understanding of policing in our community. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of their educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of the issues currently affecting the policing community. 2 webinars were held in December featuring Dr. Stephen Reid, who reflected on his first year as the Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Police Governance, and the other titled The Importance of Emotional Intelligence in Police Personnel. Recorded copies of all webinars are sent to the board members for their viewing. The Canadian Association of Police Governance is hosting a Police Governance Summit on January 6th and 7th at the Fairmont Chateau Laurier in Ottawa. The theme of the summit is Strategic Leadership from Costing to Culture, Building Your Police Governance Knowledge in a Changing Society. The summit will feature guest speakers including the Inspector General of Policing, Ryan Teschner, and the discussions will provide a firm foundation on which boards and commissions can build an effective strategy for overseeing their police service. Vice Chair Kapasavanu, members Kiokio and Gibson, Executive Director Reid, and I will be attending the summit. On January 14th, the Canadian Association of Police Governance is hosting its quarterly meeting for Police Service Board Executive Directors and Board Chairs. These quarterly meetings are designed to facilitate discussions about common issues related to police service boards, commissions, and advisory boards, and to provide a forum where participants can share ideas about best practices and approaches. The meeting will be held virtually, and Executive Director Reid and I will be attending. The board will be holding a special public board meeting on January 9th at 9:30 a.m. to elect its chair and vice chair for the 2025 term. This meeting will be held virtually by Zoom only, and the board's next scheduled regular board meeting is held Thursday, January 23rd at 9:30 a.m. in the community room at Police Headquarters. Chief, do you have any reports?
I do. Thank you, Chair, and good morning to members of the board as well. I'll break my comments, or I'll divide them into 3 areas: community safety, public safety, community engagement, and then member wellness, in keeping with our strat plan. With the holiday season upon us, we continue to increase our ride program, as you just referenced, so thank you for your engagement with our team in our effort efforts to deter impaired driving and keep our roadways safe for everyone. Members of our One District Core unit have had a very successful initiative over the past few months in response to community concerns regarding the theft of significant monetary value or assets, violence, presence of weapons in retail establishments by organized theft groups, rings of people committing organized thefts. The 3P past the point of purchase shoplifting initiative involved core members conducting 9 focused undertakings to directly address retail theft. Core members seized weapons, laid charges under the Controlled Drugs and Substance Act, and identified and arrested individuals with outstanding warrants. Over 90 arrests were made, with 71 criminal charges being advanced through the courts. It is really an exemplary demonstration of the service directly addressing community concerns in a strategic manner. A recent investigation involving 2 bank robberies has reached a successful conclusion. The robberies occurred November 21st and December 9th, and in both incidents, a male brandishing a firearm during the commission of that offense. Officers from 1 and 8 District Uniform and Criminal Investigation Bureau, 1 District Street Crime Unit, the Intelligence Unit, Emergency Task Unit, and the Hamilton Police Bear Unit worked together to identify a suspect that was responsible for both the robberies. Tremendous example of all our units working collaboratively within our organization, but also with partner police services. On December 12th, the 29-year-old male was arrested for numerous robbery-related offenses as a result of our members' dedication and perseverance. Preparations are underway for the New Year's Eve celebration to ensure everybody's safety, especially here in including Niagara Falls, where there's a significant event planned. I'm pleased to advise the board that the International Association of Property and Evidence has given our service reaccreditation for another 2 years. This is a reflection of the outstanding work done by Sergeant Bruce Mayer, who came and presented to you earlier this year, and his entire team. They were recognized by the organization, who described them as, in their written correspondence, that they were highly impressed by the professionalism and dedication exhibited by his staff. Their knowledge and commitment to best practices were evident throughout the assessment. Those are the words that we received in the correspondence we received back, so it was quite nice. On Thursday, December 12th, we hosted a tabletop exercise in this room with colleagues from the United States and Canada. I'll talk more about that exercise later this morning. But the exercise brought together Canadian transportation operators and security partners, including Transport Security Administration, Amtrak, Via Rail, and it was a reflection of the great partnership and communication that exists in our ongoing efforts across the border. With respect to community engagement, on Wednesday, December 4th, we participated in the Shopping with Cops event at the Penn Center. We had 88 of our members, both sworn and civilian, participated in the process. It was really great, including auxiliary officers, special constables, regular members. We also had the Niagara Detachment, Ontario Provincial Police, and the Niagara Parks Police join us in that undertaking. All were partnered with children to help them with their holiday shopping. The children were recommended for this undertaking by their school staff for a variety of reasons. We want to thank the board for their support of this event, whereby you assisted in approving a special fund request at our last board meeting. There are many service members that also contribute their time and energy, and we thank them all, including a special thanks to Stephanie Beatty, who was the driving force behind coordinating that event that day. On Thursday, November 28th, we attended the Toronto Police Chiefs Gala. It was a great opportunity to network with one of our partner agencies to share insights and information. On Friday, November 29th, we attended the Niagara College Welland campus to assist in judging third-year students in the Police Foundations program. We assessed them on presentations they prepared with respect to community policing based on CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, And we had an opportunity to speak with the students and the staff about policing as a profession and to help them have a better understanding of what the police do in the community besides what they might see on TV. So it was really a positive event as well. On Monday, December 2nd, we hosted another Chiefs Community Inclusion Council meeting and received a presentation on the Accessibility for Ontarians and Disabilities Act, AODA, as commonly referenced. The presentation was given by Council Member and Niagara Region Accessibility Advisor, Tammy Dumas, who provided an overview and meaningful understanding of our responsibilities and the purpose of the Act. On Friday, December 6th, members of our EDI unit attended an online panel discussion hosted by the Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment. The conversation focused on navigating gender, sexuality, and ethnocultural identities in public safety occupations. On Monday, December 9th, members of our EDI unit again visited the Fort Erie Multicultural Center to provide an overview of their unit, what they do, and how we can assist their organization in providing information on policing services to people who attend the center. On Tuesday, December 10th, the unit again visited the Solidarity of Francophone Immigrant Women of Niagara. It is an organization in the city of Welland whose mission is to support the social, economic, educational, and cultural development of French-speaking immigrant women who reside in Niagara. On December 11th, we had the privilege of delivering teddy bears alongside the several members of the Niagara Ice Dogs to children at the hospital in St. Catharines who are there dealing with significant illnesses. And we had an opportunity to meet with them, provide them with teddy bears, and spend some time with their families in an effort to lift their spirits and just share holiday cheer, if I can describe it as that. I'd like to thank Detective Sergeant Sean Turcott for his ongoing efforts in organizing this event and helping bring us all to the table to do that. It's really meaningful. And, you know, we often don't appreciate it in the moment. But I can tell you a couple days later that I received a text message from one of my neighbors who received a message from one of her friends in a social group that was speaking about the impact it had on their family. So, you know, it was a couple days later you receive a text message out of the blue. And you think, oh, you know what, that really was worthwhile. It was really meaningful. So, small things that really make a difference in people's lives. On Saturday, December 14th, we participated in the Niagara-on-Lake Santa Claus Parade with Lord Mayor Gary Zalepa. The attendance there was significant. I would estimate over 15,000 people. So we had members there. We had marked vehicles there. We walked or marched. Well, let's say we walked in the parade, and we were able to interact with the community in a really positive way. We again, a meaningful undertaking. Lots of children there in particular. Speaking of children, our coloring contest for kindergarten to grade 3 students as part of our fundraising Holiday Hero campaign has concluded, and we identified 3 winners. The students had been asked to submit artwork explaining how you stay safe in your community, and their illustrations are on our service holiday cards that you see in front of you that were provided to you. On Monday, December 16th, Sergeant Jesse Hicks, Constable Ryan Sexton, Executive Assistant Mandy Asher, and myself attended St. Anne's School in St. Catharines to meet with 2 of the winners and their classmates who are in junior kindergarten. We had a chance to chat with them, to read with them, the young kids, the students, and we enjoyed really a fantastic morning with them. We'll be attending Harriet Tubman School in the new year to meet with the 3rd winner and students and staff from that school. So really great undertaking. Also on Monday, December 16th, we had Staff Sergeant Jeff Bootsma, Constable Mike Malachowski, and Mitch Dumont travel to Ottawa for the Tree of Hope ceremony that had been organized by the Thunder Bay Police Service. The red lights on the Tree of Hope pay tribute to those lost and is a reminder that their families are not alone and that their loved ones will be remembered. The Tree of Hope was brought to Parliament Hill, and our members joined elders, drummers, the Minister of Indigenous Services, the Honourable Patty Hadu, the National Assembly of First Nations Chief, Cindy Whitehouse, and guests as they helped heighten or raise awareness of the rates of violence against missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited peoples. The ceremony, or this undertaking, hopes to see other police services across the country bring a Tree of Hope to their jurisdiction, and our members that attended there have already talked about how meaningful it was and our desire to have a Tree of Hope here in Niagara next year. The members working in the Indigenous Liaison Unit are doing tremendous work, working with the Indigenous community, and I just want to acknowledge them here as well. Today, members of our EDI unit are also attending the Welland Heritage and Multicultural Center end-of-year open house event to show our continued support of that friendship or partnership. And finally, our members are also volunteering at the Out of the Cold program in St. Catharines at the Knox Presbyterian Church, helping distribute food to those that are in need. With respect to member wellness, on Thursday, December 5th, our Women in Policing Internal Support Network, ISN, held a holiday event with over 50 members that attended. On Thursday, December 10th, 2024, this year, the auxiliary Christmas party was held to recognize and thank those members. Auxiliary members assist our service in many events and functions as volunteers. And we really want to, again, thank them, recognize their commitment to our community and their commitment in serving alongside our men and women. So I'll end my comments there, Chair, and again, thank you.
Thank you. Board members, questions, comments? Member Kiokio?
Just a quick comment, Madam Chair. Just listening to your reports, Chief, it's really nice how your members and all members are engaged with the community. I think it's very important, and just by listening to your report, it's fantastic the job that they're all doing. So I just want to show my appreciation to all members as well, and the partnerships that you've created throughout the year and that. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, board members? No? Seeing none? Thank you for that. Chief, if I can get you to introduce the presentation, please. Sorry, can I get you to turn your mic on, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. My mic was off. It's my pleasure to introduce our member support unit, the leaders of our member support unit who work tirelessly to try to support our members going out and working night and day. Tiffany Hunt, Brandy Sand, and Mike Delano. They'll provide an overview of the work they do, the outstanding work that they do.
Good morning, everyone. Beside me here, I have Sergeant Mike Delano and Brandy Sand. I'm Tiffany Hunt, the service psychologist, and today I'm going to be presenting on behalf of my esteemed colleagues and the member support unit. Thank you for this opportunity to present today. Member support. Who are we and what are we about? So our focus is really on member wellness and resiliency. We want to promote mental health awareness, reduction of mental health stigma, and generally we want to foster a culture of resiliency from a holistic approach. So that includes physical well-being, mental well-being, social well-being, and spiritual well-being. Our programs are intended to deliver and offer services with these initiatives in mind. Our programs are data-driven and informed and based on best practice initiatives. Essentially, we want our members to be well, not only in their professional lives, but their personal lives too. Here you can see our reporting structure. Our unit is overseen by a superintendent, currently Superintendent Standiforth. On the sworn side, we have our inspector, Paul Kaczynski, our sergeant, Mike Delano, who helps to offer guidance and leadership and has been a key player in our early intervention program, which I will talk about shortly. We have our reintegration constable, Mike Warnock, who helps to facilitate a seamless transition back into the workplace for our members. We also have a temporary constable position that is currently filled by Constable Dave Jasterbecki, who helps with member check-ins and is helping to develop our peer support team. We have our spiritual services with representation from our chaplains, our administrative clerk, Courtney Skrebick, who helps with our day-to-day operations and keeps us all focused and on task. And on the mental health side, we have again myself and our mental health clinician, Brandy Sand. As I was saying, it's a holistic approach to wellness. So we see some of our pillars here. So this is the mental, mental, physical, social, and spiritual elements. We offer a reintegration program. So this is a return to work program. It is mandated for any officer involved shooting. It is voluntary if there is a physical health leave or mental health leave or even a maternity leave. And again, it's really to help facilitate a seamless transition back into the workplace. We have our new officer wellness evaluations, which currently consists of a 3-month check-in. It's essentially a wellness check-in to see how members are doing, to provide a little bit of psychoeducation, and make sure that our members are aware of resources and how to access support if needed. This also occurs at 12 months. Now, based on feedback that we have received, moving forward, we will be doing a 3-month introductory call, a 6-month in-person check-in, a 12-month text or call check-in, and then finally at 18 months, after the officers have been cut loose and independent for a while, we will be checking in them for a final visit. Safeguarding. So essentially, this is another wellness check-in program. This happens annually for our risks, where our units where there is greater risk for high volume trauma exposure. Again, it's an opportunity for psychoeducation and to make sure that our members are aware of how to access resources and supports as needed. We have our critical incident stress management program. So if there is a critical incident, we do offer group and individual crisis intervention, debriefing, and defusing. Our early intervention program, this is an exciting new initiative. We now have a software program that helps to flag or identify when officers have a lot of potentially distressing calls or critical incidents in a short period of time. So it is a preventative approach where we are doing direct reach outs. So that is one of us from member support will directly check in with members, again, to see how they're doing and check if they need any support or access to any resources. And finally, we have our peer support team. In addition to mental health, we know that it is very helpful and valuable to have members that have a relatability factor, that have lived it, that have breathed it. And we currently have 29 members on our peer support team with representation from civilian and sworn. In addition to the programs I just detailed, we have other team-led initiatives. So myself and mental health clinician Brandy Sand, we do offer short-term therapy as well as consultations for our members. If it is something that seems like would be better suited for longer-term therapy, we do have a community provider list, and this consists of providers who we have interviewed and we are familiar that they know police and police families and this type of work. So often we're initiating referrals to these outside services and clinicians and communities. We also do psychoeducations and presentations internally and within the community, and we also help to structure and organize wellness initiatives. Okay, so in terms of some results and outcomes that we're seeing, so fortunately, with our new early intervention program and software program, data is starting to be tracked more intentionally. So you can see here that we are busy. We've had 100, and this is data from January 1st to November 17th of this year. We've had 197 reintegration contacts, 23 peer support interviews, 196 clinical sessions and or consults, our new officer wellness appointments at 77, safeguarding 186, group debriefs 8, early intervention check-ins 697, and I will elaborate on this in a moment. Our wellness initiatives, we've had 8 of those. Our chaplain services and hours are about just shy of 428 hours, and this consists of delivering ceremonies, check-ins, ride-alongs, so there's a bunch of services within this, and then presentations at 25. So to elaborate a little bit further on our early interventions and how this is broken down, so we have our critical incidents, wellness follow-ups, return to work. So this is a check-in to see how the return to work process is going. Peer requested initiatives, if members, so we're also coordinating and actively collaborating with disability and HR. So if there is a 30-day absence, we're also checking in to see if members require any support. We've had a few supervisor-initiated check-ins, and then finally, we do have thresholds that are being established through our program to do direct reach-outs as well. Now, consistent with our strategic plan and goal, we are really attempting to foster wellness and resiliency. We do have surveys, and again, we're working on the data-informed and data-driven programming. As part of our safeguarding program, we have received feedback specific to one of our targets of reducing mental health stigma. So the following statement, I believe that safeguarding sessions help to reduce mental health stigma. You can see that there's a large majority there at 72% agreeing or strongly agreeing with this. And continuing with safeguarding feedback and looking at help and support seeking, following statement, I believe that the safeguarding session improved my willingness to seek out help when dealing with a mental health concern. And you can see here, again, a large majority at 81%, again, with strongly agree or agree with this statement. Now, we're looking at quantitative data, but also qualitative feedback as well. With our safeguarding program, we're seeing a strong satisfaction rate, again, with 94% satisfaction at agree or strongly agree that the program is delivering what it's intended to deliver. Same with our new officer wellness evaluations. We can see a 90% satisfaction rate here. Some qualitative statements and feedback. Every member of the member wellness unit has made this an extremely positive experience. The process was easy to navigate and seems to be useful and relevant to frontline officers at the early stages of their career. It was a great experience and clinician was amazing to talk to. I think that these check-ins are a great way to keep new officers in a healthy state of mind and create positive habits at the start of their career. And then also thank you to the clinician. I felt really good after the meeting. Additional feedback. So again, we're working with our community and our members to hear what they're saying and to make sure that we're tailoring services and programs to their needs. We can see here one of the key points is additional funding for future positions. There's so many officers and not necessarily enough member support workers to help with all the check-ins and keeping our members well. Also valuable feedback, we do have these new officer wellness evaluations, however, also highlighting that we should be checking in on our veteran officers as well. Another takeaway for us has been to ensure that we're reaching our family members. One suggestion, if family members had a number to refer to or some additional resources so they could contact us, that way one of us could reach out. And in response to that, at our post-OPC family night now, we are delivering a small package with resources that are available. We are also collaborating with Niagara Beyond the Blue, which is a support service for families, to look at additional staffing for them and also to make members aware of this service. Now, I would like to open it up to any questions, and I am happy to answer. I would also, with permission, like to invite my esteemed colleagues to answer as well or jump in as needed.
Great, thank you for that. Members, questions? Member Yip and then Vice Chair Kapasvanu.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you very much for the important work that you do for the service. I want to ask about the safeguarding program, which included 186 appointments, and if you'd speak a little bit more about how important the program is, which units are included by default, given the higher exposure to trauma, and the very real effects of vicarious trauma.
Do you want to jump in on this one too? Okay. So the feedback in general is that, you know, it's very valued just to see how members are doing. It's an opportunity for them to talk about, right, like not only professional stressors, but personal stressors, and making sure they're aware not only of resources, but adaptive coping strategies as well. It does include a psychoeducational component, so we are specifically highlighting what trauma looks like, how it shows up, what to pay attention to, you know, warning signs, because again, we want to make sure that people are well. Most people in these units are aware that there is high volume trauma exposure. So again, it's making sure that they know the coping, the supports, and if that's not in place, like do they need assistance, right? Like building that further. Because we know sometimes that, yes, that does look like therapy or peer support, or for other people, maybe that's like exercise or time with families. But generally the feedback has been, right, that it is valued, and it also feels like somebody, right, like, or we are kind of keeping an eye on them too. We do have set units that we have. Randy, maybe you could help me with all of those. However, a little bit biased being in mental health, like I think we could do everybody. But yes, for those that we know, because vicarious trauma is a real thing, cumulative stress is real, and I think that's where some of the concern comes in, because sometimes, like anywhere in life, we all get so far into our picture that we can't see it, so it's very valuable to have another set of eyes and ears on you. Did you want to jump in with some of those, right, units too?
So thank you, through Chair Lawson, for your question there, Councillor Member Ip. So right now, we look at major crimes, we look at sworn, and we also look at our civilian staff. And we're looking again, like Tiffany said, high trauma exposure, intensity, and frequency. So when we look at that, we're not saying that everybody needs to check in. I actually think that everybody is welcome to have a check-in, so it's always invited, but we target our communications units, our, I'm trying to think, our ETU, our traffic unit, our major crimes, our sex assault, domestic violence, our forensic unit, trying to think of them all.
Yeah.
So we actually have 13 units
Yeah.
specifically, and they're all the specialty units. And just to elaborate, what we're looking for isn't to diagnose. It's more, historically it was based on metrics and assessments. Right now, we're changing that language to engagement, collaboration, and we're looking to have a check-in, and we're looking at operational stress and occupational stress as well. We're theming that and allowing those to come forward to our executive leadership and to yourself, talking about what's showing up in the member, doing some psychoeducation support with them, but then also taking that back from an organizational standpoint and implementing things that make sense for those members.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Vice Chair Kapasvanu.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Part of the question has already been answered in terms of the targets, but I just wanted to find out, the percentages seem very high in terms of the response to the surveys. What number are we using to get that percentage? Is it for the whole surveys, or a chunk of people who was responding, like 81% of what, of the whole surveys? Or is it 81% of a certain unit? And when you get those numbers, are we able to tell which units we're getting most of the responses for, therefore we can target the member wellness services that you're providing?
Yes, so we know that survey response rate is not always ideal, right? It's usually typically around in the 30th, right, percentile range. So the responses that you're seeing in terms of satisfaction are those members that did complete the survey. However, qualitatively, I would say that we've got that feedback, right, like just in the one-on-one, and have a direct sense of, right, like was this helpful or useful? We are intentionally now, with this early intervention program and the software and tracking system, trying to establish some of these like baselines, thresholds. So that's kind of in progress right now. So we're going to be taking the data from this year to try to set some of those standards.
Thank you. Any, Member McKendrick?
Thank you so much for the work you're doing. I actually am sitting here with goosebumps because I just love everything that I'm hearing. But mostly I am very happy to see the focus, or more focus, on prevention and early intervention and getting ahead of things. We know just for mental health and addictions in general, let's stop the crisis and get in earlier and more effectively. So I love that it's being embedded, normalized. This is part of the work. It's not a personal thing, it's part of the work, so let's reach out and help each other. So thank you for that. I love seeing that focus. And I'll be curious as things go on and more things are implemented, what the data may show, because when I see an ask for additional resources, I wonder about the return on investment, because we know the cost that return to work, absences, overtime, we know there's a cost to that. And I think as the data pans out and new things are introduced, that there's going to be an opportunity for a return on investment, that if more resources were put into member wellness, it probably plays out. So thank you very much for the work that you're all doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a quick question. So I noticed on slide 7, you mentioned that supervisor-initiated check-in was quite low. Is there an opportunity to train the supervisors a little bit more so to help out with some of that early intervention and check-in?
Thank you for that question, and it is an excellent question and reflection that we have had, like in terms of leadership and also to normalize, right, like the reach outs. So absolutely, this is on our radar, and it is one of the things that we're looking to address.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments? No? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for having us.
If I can have Member Yip and Vice Chair Kapasvanu move that the presentation be received. All those in favor? No one's opposed, so that's carried. We'll move on to items 8.1 to 8.5, and we'll move those in block. If I can have members McKendrick and members Steele move that the information be received. Questions or comments on any of those? Member Yip?
Thank you, Chair. I'd actually like to have 8.3 lifted and voted on separately, if we could, and then I have some things to say about that item as well.
Okay, any other items to bring forward? Okay, so we'll move 8.1, 8.2, 8.4, 8.5, that the information be received. All those in favor? No one's opposed, so that's carried. We'll bring 8.3 forward, and I'll have Member Yip take the floor.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I hope you'll indulge me for a few more moments than usual, and I'll try not to speak too quickly because Member Kiokio chastised me for that at the council meeting last week, where I have a time limit, so I had to speak quickly. I wanted to speak to this item because council has requested that the NRPS cut their budget further than what was originally presented to them. The request for this further cut equates to 0.18% of the region's entire levy budget. It's a few dollars per household, according to regional staff. However, it's also the delay of hiring 3 detective sergeants for the domestic violence unit. And a little bit of a history on this. On September 21st, 2023, with a motion from me and Councillor Steele, Regional Council declared intimate partner violence and gender-based violence an epidemic, and joined more than 40 other Ontario municipalities in asking the province to do the same. Part of that motion included the following statistics. In Niagara Region in 2022, there were 5,160 intimate partner violence calls for service made to the Niagara Regional Police, and 1,143 of those calls involved criminal investigations. For the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Victim Services Niagara provided service to 749 victims of intimate partner violence, including 31 children, developed 91 safety plans for victims and had to revise 55 of those safety plans due to breaches. For the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Birchway Niagara received 2,571 crisis calls, supported 575 women through outreach services, 233 women and children stayed in the shelter, and 278 women were turned away due to a lack of space. For the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Jillian's Place received 10,383 crisis calls, supported 2,017 people through outreach services, 166 adults and 127 children lived in shelter, and 431 people were turned away due to a lack of space. Violence against women costs the national justice system, healthcare system, social service agencies, and municipalities nearly $10 billion, that's a B, dollars per year. That motion passed unanimously. And all of those numbers that I just cited from the 2022-2023 fiscal year, which was the data that we had at the time of the motion to council, they have only increased. On that evening of the motion, the executive directors of Jillian's Place, Birchway Niagara, and Victim Services Niagara, along with Dr. Robin Bourgeois, delegated to council about the need to declare intimate partner violence and gender-based violence an epidemic. Yesterday, we received a copy of a letter from Jillian's Place and Birchway Niagara. It was a thank you letter sent to Chief Forty, extending their sincere gratitude for the recent increase in the budget allocated to the domestic violence unit. And the letter shared what a vital step forward this is in our collective efforts to address domestic violence in Niagara. I don't know if the executive directors of Jillian's Place and Birchway Niagara know that council voted to delay the hiring of these detective sergeants. I don't know if they know that councillors who voted in favor of declaring intimate partner violence an epidemic and who post to social media about how important the police are in addressing domestic violence voted in favor of this further cut and against the entire police budget. I do know that, as outlined in the letter, specialized domestic violence officers at all levels play an indispensable role in ensuring that survivors receive the care and justice they deserve. I also know that our domestic violence unit, as it is currently resourced, is overwhelmed by the number of cases per officer, having nearly twice as many cases each as comparable police services in the province. And as our member support unit just presented, the domestic violence unit is one of 13 units that is targeted through their safeguarding program, given the high volume of trauma they witness. I cannot support this request for a further reduction to the NRPS budget. As I've stated before, in the past, I have voiced opposition to the police budgets that have been presented to council, including sending last year's budget back to this board. But this year's budget is the most responsible budget I recall seeing presented to regional council. When you consider that 5.7% of the increase in this year's police budget is directly related to changes the province made to the Community Safety and Policing Act, and more than 6% of the increase is due to contractual obligations, the actual requested increase from the service and board ends up being around 2%. A 2% increase that includes an increase in the number of officers in the domestic violence unit, which Jillian's Place and Birchway Niagara say will undoubtedly enhance the capacity of these professionals to provide the tailored responses essential for effectively tackling domestic violence. Chair, I'm not sure I want to continue arguing with Regional Council about this year's budget, particularly when I have shared with Regional Council what this increase means for specifically the domestic violence unit and survivors of intimate partner violence, but I will not be voting in favor of this request for a further cut to the services budget. I do want to pass this over to the Chief for comment for a moment, if I may, given that at our last board meeting, he identified a risk to adequate and effective policing with the delay of these hires. Chief, can you speak to this, please?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Member Yip, for your comments. When we brought the budget submission to this board, and then the board approved it, and we presented to Regional Council, in our presentation, we provided the board with our views that this was not a layered request. We did not go to the board asking for things that we wanted. We went asking for things that we needed based on our belief that these things would provide adequate and effective policing, as Member Yip said, to comply with our responsibilities under the Community Safety and Policing Act. As this board knows, that request was inclusive of a significant lift in our domestic violence unit, which we had identified through our discussions as really the biggest single risk that we were facing as a service. And that was the position that we brought to this board and then ultimately to Regional Council. I said several times during the presentation to Council that we would continue to evaluate our programs on both the sworn side and the civilian side. And in all likelihood, we would be coming back next year with a request to fulfill the identified needs to provide adequate and effective policing, inclusive of any emerging trends that might be presented to us. At that time, we had no idea what was about to happen with respect to national security and border security issues, which is putting additional pressure. That has nothing to do with this budget submission, but it's an example of something that we'll be dealing with on a go-forward basis. When, on the heels of our presentation, it was approved, there was an amendment made at the initial board presentation, and then there was a second amendment made where it was sent back to us, and we were asked to reduce by, I'm going to say, $1,035,000 or something. It was about a little bit over $1 million. So on the heels of that, we sat down with our team. We recognized the issue of affordability, and we looked at every single position, frankly, that we had put forward, and tried to be mindful of affordability on one hand, but also mindful of our responsibility to provide adequate and effective policing. And several of the positions, because they're new positions, needed to have a job description prepared. We needed to go through the staffing function. So we thought we could reasonably delay them, because it would take some time anyway. But the one that we did speak about as an identified risk was domestic violence. And we explained to the board that in order to comply with the request, we would potentially, or we could potentially stagger the hiring of the sergeants. In other words, we would identify the staff sergeant first, and then the staff sergeant would participate in helping to identify sergeants, et cetera, which is fairly common practice. So we offset that, and we explained to the board that did bring with it a degree of risk. And because, and I'm trying to reflect basically on what I said, but we talked about the fact that domestic violence is increasing, and I believe, and other people that are involved in this arena believe, that domestic violence is often underreported, that it takes place more than we're aware. So we identified the risk, and then we recognized and respect the fact that it was the board's budget, and we are simply the people asked to provide stewardship of those public monies, and brought it ultimately to you for your consideration. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Member Yip, but it is, if it's specific to domestic violence, it is an identified risk. We are trying our best to mitigate it, like every other risk we have, but it it was the number one thing that we found in our presentations and in our review of the data that was of concern to us. And as you referenced, we have received significant positive feedback from our partner agencies and from our members that are involved in this work, because they feel like they're you heard member support here, they're shouldering a tremendous burden, and I have nothing but complete respect for all of them.
Thank you for that, Chief. Through you, Chair. I mean, my difficulty with this is we declared intimate partner violence an epidemic at Regional Council. And this is an opportunity for Regional Council for, in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money, to help start to make a difference. Again, particularly when we know that domestic violence is increasing, femicides are increasing. This is a crisis that continues, and we don't resource the people, whether it be the service, whether it be the shelters. We don't resource the people who can actually help anywhere near enough to make an impact. The delay of hiring these particular detective sergeants is alarming to me, and I think you know, for those who come out and say that they support what the police do around domestic violence and trying to mitigate that violence, for those who advocate for survivors of intimate partner violence, this is something that I think, frankly, is a no-brainer that you have to support as well. So again, when we vote on this particular item, I will not be voting in favor of it because I cannot, in good conscience, put this particular unit at risk. Thank you.
Member Kiokio?
Thank you. So just quick, through you, Madam Chair, to the Chief. So this is a delay of hiring the detectives? We're not cutting the program out. We're not cutting the, you said we're offsetting. So can you just explain that again, how that works?
Thank you, through you, Chair. When we made our initial request, in keeping with the region's bylaws, we put full year salary dollars in our request. Recognizing that there are some positions, like brand new cadets as an example, that it's not reasonable for us to hire everybody we need on day one. So, and we identified what I'll use the salary slippage might be, monies that we wouldn't spend would be for the board, so that, and for the region, so they were fully informed. And then in that initial board presentation, there was an amendment to allow for the delayed hiring of really our first responders, the people that are coming into the organization, because we can't hire them and get spots at the Ontario Police College like on January 1st. There are 4 intakes to the college and they come in a staggered manner. So that was the initial ask. When the region asked us to revisit the $1 million plus, what we did is, you know, we believe that what we asked for, as I said, was not a layered request. We didn't put things forward with the view of actually having a reduction. We wanted to go and put hand over heart and say, this is what we need, because we have to go back next year and the year after and the year after. I didn't want to be seen to be playing a game. So we have not eliminated the positions that we're asking for. Our position is that we need them. We have structured it so that the proposal that we brought to the board for consideration was to hire the staff sergeant January 1st, to have the monies for the position, to bring the sergeants in April, and then the constables as normal.
So that, excuse me, just interrupt. So that's what's been recommended, hiring of the sergeant in January 1st, right?
The staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant.
And then the sergeants was April 1st.
Which is kind of something you would do anyways. I think you stated earlier with any position.
Well, we could do it that way, but I can also say that, you know, with our program changes, we've identified all our superintendents, we've identified our inspectors, our superintendents got together, today's Thursday, Tuesday and Wednesday to talk about the staff sergeants. So we are moving kind of as strategically and quickly as we can. I'm not sure if they started the discussion about the sergeants yet. Briefly, they had a brief discussion about it yesterday.
But I'm just looking at the procedure is, you're not really out of line by what was recommended by, okay, we're hiring a staff sergeant January 1st. Staff sergeant has a say in the next position, which will be in April. So I think I understand where Councillor Yip is coming from. However, I'm looking from regional council's perspective is we didn't delete, we're not putting them in, like we're still moving forward in the next few months with those 3 positions. So it's not like we cut the program out. It was a bit of a cost savings in which councillors were looking for. Any little bit that we could have brought forward to regional council. I'm kind of putting my regional hat on now because I spoke to a lot of the councillors that evening and prior phone calls, and they were looking at, some type of reduction, which you did bring forward. And are we are we totally risking the violence, or are we just like? The way I see it, we're still moving forward with the hiring of the staff sergeant or the sergeant on January 1st, and then we're moving on, moving forward to get the ball rolling, and maybe delayed a couple of months. I don't know.
Thank you.
Just a clarification, I guess.
Through you, Chair. We have not yet taken any action with respect to the sergeants. We wanted to wait for direction from the board. One thing that we have talked about is that regional council does not have the ability or should not be directing operations, that they are ultimately responsible for a funding envelope in general terms. And then that funding envelope comes back to the board, and then it's the board's budget, and then we are responsible for the stewardship of that budget. One thing that I guess ultimately it's up to the board and the service to decide when we bring the positions in. Arguably, we could still bring them in and run the risk up against the end of the year, what the budget implications might be.
Exactly. So
that would be
through
for
you,
the
Madam
board
Chair,
to
you're
consider.
going to be monitoring it if it gets really, if it becomes a real bad situation, I guess, is what I'm hearing. We hired the staff sergeant January 1st, but you're going to be monitoring. If we really need the other staff people, you're going to go ahead and do it, because regional council has no control over is what I'm hearing, right? What you can.
Yeah, the regional council provides the funding envelope.
Exactly.
And the stewardship of that money
So
falls to us.
you're going to be monitoring in January. You're going to hire your staff sergeant and then monitor it if some of these some of the concerns that Councillor Yip brought forward, if you're seeing that escalating really, really bad or more serious than it is now, you'll get things rolling really quick and move from there, correct? And then risk the chance of at the end of the year if we're over budget, then, we worry about it then.
I mean, through you, Chair, I mean, yes, we could. My preference would be, the approach that we've tried to take is to strategically bring positions in rather than organically responding to the pressures of a day.
That's your first step that we're going to move forward with, if this is approved this afternoon, or this morning, right? The hiring, what you've recommended to the board.
Well, the board report that we brought forward was not supported. So there is now a funding envelope, and I guess it would be the board's direction if their request was for us to default to what we brought forward I think it was the end of November.
I
Yes.
I think what I'm trying to get at is we're still moving forward with the hiring of the staff. It may be delayed, I'm thinking maybe 3 months or till April. So, and I think that's, where council have been thinking of when they voted in favor of the cutbacks, or what was presented by the board. So
Thank you. I'm going to bring
that's-
forward the fact that this information is to be received, so that's the motion that's actually on the floor. It's not that we're voting for or against, it's just that the information
My
is to be
apologies, okay.
received right now. Pardon me?
Just to clarify, if we don't receive it, then we're still in discussions about the budget with the region, correct?
Through you, Chair. I don't believe so. The receipt is just receiving their correspondence and what the motion is, or resolution that was passed at council. They have authority under the CSPA, as you know, to set our budget, and if the board's not satisfied with it, then of course, there is an option to take it to arbitration. But that's not what's on the floor right now.
Okay, thank you. So to clarify, I mean, I can still vote to not receive this, because I could just say, you didn't write that. I don't agree. But if we were going to sort of continue this argument, and I do have some things to say about some of the comments that were just made, but just speaking to the procedural piece right now, if we decide that this is not acceptable, this is not an acceptable risk for the service and the board, then a motion would have to come forward to go to arbitration, or whatever that looks like. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, so that'll be under new business then. So the motion that's on the floor right now is that the information be received. I'm not, sorry, Member Gibson, did you have a comment? Yeah, I want to jump in on questions. Perfect. So we'll go Member Gibson and then back to Member Yip.
Okay, thank you. To Board Member Yip, excellent summation of the facts there. Thank you very much for that. That was impressive work. To the lone female and her children who end up getting turned away, waiting doesn't work. And you know, it's a few dollars, as Councillor Yip said. If we save one life, if we save one person from being harmed or on the street with their children, then that's money well spent. So I will not vote for this. I think we should go to arbitration. I'm no problem with that. They keep cutting us and cutting us. And as the chief said, this is one of the highest risk areas, and it's not acceptable. So I'd say more, but it's just it's emotional for me. So.
Thank you, Member Gibson. Member Yip?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Chief, if money was not an object, how quickly could you hire these detective sergeants?
There would be a process. Lou and I were just speaking about that on the side, trying to provide a better sense, and maybe I'll invite Lou to jump in. It wouldn't be tomorrow, or it wouldn't be January 1st now, but I'll invite Lou to just provide additional context.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. So the process, depending on the chief's decision, if the board were to give direction, we want these positions immediately. If we go through the job posting process, that will take time. I believe it's 14 or 15 days that the posting would be valid for, depending on where it sits in the queue for job posting process. Go through that, establish panel review, and then establish interview dates, and then selections get made from there. Then that process would start again for the constable piece. To the chief's point earlier of a staff sergeant has been identified and is ready to go January 1st. We would like that staff sergeant to be part of that job posting process, to have input and evaluation, to be part of it. And then potentially the sergeants and staff sergeants, once the sergeants are in place, to be part of the process for the constables. So there is going to be some inherent delay following the collective agreement job posting process once it's triggered. Then going forward, the onboarding and selection, we also have to be aware of the impact to the front line, because if we move all these supervisory bodies and then investigative bodies, that draw is going to come from the front line. We're not going to be able to replace them quick enough with the new hires to offset that. So those are some of the considerations with that staggered approach that we were looking at.
Thank you, Chair. So that you were looking at in relation to the delay of hiring, so if money was no object and we said, go ahead, do the thing that you got to do right now, when could these detective sergeants be in place? Understanding, of course, there's a process and everything else. What is the earliest date that these detective sergeants could be in place?
I think a fair answer would be 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
That we could have them in place.
Thank you. So my concern around this, and I mean, I'm super focused on this particular issue simply because for a number of reasons, some I won't get into, I know a lot about this particular issue, but supporting the delay of hiring these detective sergeants is in effect supporting an additional 4 months of not being adequately resourced in this unit. It's already a really bad situation. And it has only continued to escalate year after year while this unit has been under-resourced. So this is not about waiting to see if it becomes bad, waiting to see if it becomes worse. It's already at a point where this unit needs to be adequately resourced, and it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Capisvanu, and then Member Steele.
Thank you, Member Reed, for bringing up all those things. Working in this sector, I totally get it, and I am totally all for this. But I think what I would like to understand is, what are we supposed to be doing with this issue today? Are we saying that the region has cut the budget, or are we saying the budget is still there and there has been a delay? And if we're saying there's a delay, it is an emergency, we need to do this, because if we're saying the region has cut the budget after declaring that this is a crisis, right, a state of emergency, then there's a risk of the region looking like they're doing checkbox issues here, where they checked the box that we have stood with the community and say that this is a crisis, and yet they're not putting their money where their mouth is. So can we just clarify for today? Are we just receiving this information full stop? And what is the implication of us receiving that information? Are we saying the budget towards the domestic violence unit has been cut? Or are we saying the budget is still there and we're just asking for a delay? And if we're saying as a board no to the delay, is now the time to be doing this at the receiving only? Or like, can somebody clarify that for us, please?
I'm going to suggest, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that the region has approved an overall budget. We've put forward how we're suggesting that we would have spent it, but we can still adjust it within that range because those are salaries, which means we could actually, I am so sorry for having to pick on this one because I disagree with even bringing it up, but the senior command, if we had to delay the hire of the senior command to get the domestic violence unit in faster, then that's what we would have to do, because we have our overall budget that's been approved, but as long as the number results in the end number that the region had suggested, then we're fine within that. So for example, we could choose maybe the social media coordinator is delayed, maybe the remote piloted aircraft system unit, instead of coming in on October, maybe they come in the December. So all of those ones could be pushed. So the domestic violence unit, if I'm understanding correctly, could be bumped forward within the 4 to 6 weeks. It would mean that other changes would have to be made within the current hiring system. I'm going to let the chief confirm that that's correct, and then we'll go back to the questions. Chief?
Thank you for your question, and through you, Chair. I believe that the board could direct the service given that this is a priority, to proceed and have an overall awareness as the year, as we move through the year. We report quarterly on our budget, and we would have the ability to really keep an eye on it. You know, the 3 people being delayed 6 weeks potentially, that's half the issue resolved right there. So I think that the board could say, could receive it and then say, received, but based on the funding envelope, please prioritize domestic violence in keeping with the manner that Member Yip has identified.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Vice Chair Capsavanu and then Member Yip, and then Member.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you for
Sorry.
those clarifications. I think, because I was actually going to speak, is it not the board's decision to direct how the monies are used, because this is operations? So if that is the case, then we will direct as we see fit as the board.
Thank you for that. I'll go to Member Steele.
Thank you. So procedurally, guys, we should be receiving this. Let's just vote to receive it. Under new business is when we should be giving direction to the chief and his staff with regards to how this board wants to see us proceed with this. All we're doing is receiving this. That's all it is, just correspondence. Whether we agree with it or not, you should always receive your correspondence. But under new business, we should be bringing it up, how we want this board to proceed in direction with the chief, his deputies, and their staff to move forward. So I would ask that that vote comes. I agree with what everybody's saying, but I think that vote needs to come, and then we deal with it under new business.
Thank you. Member Yip.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So because I don't want to see the service or the region spend money on the whole arbitration process, I will bring a motion under new business that makes this request. So when we get there, I'll have something. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions about this? Seeing none, all those in favor? So we're just receiving the information. All those in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Under new business, if I can have Member Gibson and Member Yip move that the Niagara Police Service Board approve the draft bylaw and amended fee schedule as appended to this report, effective January 1st, 2025, and further that the inflationary index be applied to maintain alignment with the cost of labor and supplies. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Vice Chair Capsavanu.
Just a quick question with regards to the fee schedule for students. Was that intentional that the student fees, I think, went down, whereas from last year? Because all the other fees seemed to be going up from last year except the students one. Is that like what it's supposed to be, or was that an error?
Chief?
I apologize, the board report, I was trying to catch up on the board reports. Which board report number?
I was asking
I was listening
about.
to the question, but
Yeah. You'd like me to repeat the question?
I'm sorry, which board report? I was trying to catch up
Sorry,
on
did you
the
go to
board reports.
9.2 or 9.1? We're on 9.1.
Oh, no, it's 9.2. It's 9.2.
Sorry, we jumped ahead there.
Okay.
So any questions or comments about 9.1? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. For 9.2, if I can have Vice Chair Capsavanu and Member McKendrick move that the Niagara Police Service Board approve the draft bylaw and amended fee schedule as appended to this report effective January 1st, 2025, and further that the inflationary index be applied to maintain alignment with the cost of labor and supplies. Questions or comments on user fee charges for police services? Seeing none, all those in favor? No one's opposed. That is carried. 9.3, Next Generation 911. If I can have Member Steele and Member Kiokio move that the Niagara Police Service Board approve the project change order from Motorola Solutions Canada, Inc. for NG 911 related workstations for St. Catharines Fire Services in the amount of $294,354.81, net of HST rebates, and subject to the approval of the Regional Treasurer, a gross capital budget adjustment totaling $57,500 and net $0 to NG 911 Equipment Replacement Project 200000999, fully funded through the third-party cost-sharing recoveries from St. Catharines Fire Services. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? No one's opposed, so that's carried. 9.4, if I, special fund policy review, if I can have members Yip and Vice Chair Capasavani move that the Niagara Police Service Board approve the recommendations outlined in the report. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? No one's opposed, so that's carried. 9.5 is a special fund request. So before we consider special fund request item 9.5, I would like to remind members of the public that the special fund does not form part of the police operating budget and is separate from the regional tax base. The special fund is a discretionary pool of funds which is used for grants and charitable donations. Disbursements from the fund are made in accordance with guidelines provided in the Community Safety and Policing Act and with Board Bylaw 403-2024, Special Fund Administration Limitations and Guidelines. If I can have members Gibson and McKendrick move that, oh, sorry, I'm going to say Member Gibson and Member Yip move that the Niagara Police Service Board approve a special fund donation in the amount of $5,000 in support of the Service Holiday Hero Campaign. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Do any board members have any other new business? Member Yip.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I would like to move, and I am betting that Member Gibson will second it, that funds in the 2025 operating budget be reallocated to move immediately on the hiring of the staff sergeant and detective sergeants for the domestic violence unit, and that other adjustments be made to the budget to offset this move. Just speaking very briefly to this, because I've already said more than enough for the day. I have a word limit for the day. This is actually not the way that I would like to see this. This is probably the first time that I have supported a police budget as presented in its entirety. So I would much prefer that we were going the route of what was originally presented to us. But in an effort to save the cost and time and energy that goes into arbitration and to put regional council in a position where they are actually resourcing the things that they say are important to resource. That's why I'm bringing this particular motion right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion's forward by Member Yip and then seconded by Vice Chair Capasavanu. Or Members Gibson. Well, there we've got seconded there. We've got seconded by Member Gibson and moved by Member Yip. Questions or comments? Member Steele?
Thanks, Chair. Just, can you repeat that again?
You have to listen faster. That funds in the 2025 operating budget be reallocated to move immediately on the hiring of the staff sergeant and detective sergeants for the domestic violence unit, and other adjustments be made to the budget to offset this move. So the service will decide what those reallocations can be for the rest of the budget, but we would move on this particular unit.
Yeah, I support it. I just wanted to, yeah, I think we should allow chief deputies and their staff to move through the year and adjust as needed. Putting this at their top of the list, but the rest of it can be adjusted as needed throughout the year. So I agree with that, but I just want to make sure that they understand that's, I think that's, I believe that's the will of this board. But yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, thanks.
Member Kyokyo?
Yes, I'm fine with it as well. So in clarity is the monies that that the region believe that we're cutting back on, it still stays with the same amount, and they're just right. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I'm happy with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? No one's opposed, so that's carried unanimously. There you go. Chief, any new items?
No, thank you.
Okay, if I can, we're going to move to 11.1. If I can have members Kiokio and member Steele move that in accordance with board direction, the in-camera report be made available to the public. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. If I can have Vice Chair Kapasavanu and Member McKendrick move that the board move into closed session for consideration of confidential matters pursuant to Section 44 of the Community Safety and Policing Act, namely for subject matter related to potential litigation, human resources matters, information supplied in confidence by the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and from vendors for contract awards, as well as legal matters that are subject to solicitor-client privilege. All those in favor? No one's opposed, so that's carried. And before we adjourn the public portion of our meeting, I would like to extend the board's warmest wishes for the holiday season. This time of the year is a time for celebration, but can also be challenging for many individuals and families facing difficult situations. Together, we have the power to make a difference. By taking even small steps, we can bring joy to those who are less fortunate, and I encourage everyone to consider supporting a local charity of your choice, helping to spread a sense of community and compassion to those who may be struggling. On behalf of myself and the Niagara Police Service Board, I wish you all peace, happiness, and meaningful moments with your family and friends this holiday season. May your holidays be safe, joyful, and may the new year bring health, happiness, and prosperity to all. Thank you. The public meeting is adjourned.